Welcome back to Giggles and Gains. I am joined for the second time today by Claudia. So thank you so much for joining me. We're literally going to be chatting through all things psychodynamic therapy. We're going to touch on a little bit to do with the comp because we have been chatting for the last half an hour and not come up for air, and we probably should have recorded the whole thing. We're going to be chatting through some of the stuff from my comp, which was actually yesterday as of when this was filmed. And then I've got so many questions for us to work through. So would you like to introduce yourself again for the listeners and watchers?
Yep. So my name's Claudia Kempinska. I'm a psychodynamic psychotherapist. I work in private practice. It's just turned 10 years old, so that's really exciting.
Congratulations.
Thank you. I've also worked in the NHS in child and adolescent mental health and various other organisations, but now full-time privately working with children, young people, adults and couples.
Lovely. Who's your favourite client type to work with?
I really like working with adolescents.
Really?
Yeah. I absolutely love it. I find them really funny.
Why?
Because they just, a lot of the time, will come in and be themselves.
They've not been tainted by the world
Well,
just yet.
Even that, well, that's partly why they come, because there's usually some stuff that's gone on that means that they have been affected by what's happened to them. But they will tell you like it is. Like, they're not putting on airs and graces. They're not coming in and saying, oh yeah, thank you very much, that's really helpful. If you've not been helpful, you'll know about it.
Really?
Yeah. It's like, oh, this is, what are you doing? Why are you getting me to do that thing? Oh, I love all of that. I do.
The
I can
open,
really
honest directions.
I can identify with that.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
Where would you like to start today? Would you like to start with some questions? Would you like to start with boundaries?
Yeah,
or link
maybe
in with that?
a little bit around boundaries and kind of my experience, and because it is my forte, boundaries. And the reason why boundaries is my forte, I guess, is because psychodynamically we think about what we call the therapeutic frame, which is the boundary of the therapy. And we think about any kind of contact the client has with us before a session, emails, phone calls, and I'm then thinking about, what does that communication tell me about this client and their past experiences and their patterns of relating, and how they communicate with me is usually an indication of their other relationships in life.
Really? What sort of things are you looking for? And how do they then link?
Interesting. So first of all, what am I looking for? How quickly does someone respond to me? What might that tell me about their internal processes? Like, do they think really quickly, or may they impulsively respond to things? Mm-hmm. If there's a delay, what's the delay about? Is it because they've got a really busy life? Because we've all got busy lives. How do they communicate with me? Are they wanting something more intimate? So do they message me on something like Instagram, or do they WhatsApp me, or is it a bit more formal with an email? Are they looking for an instant response, or are they happy for there to be a bit of a delay? So is there something about instant gratification? So the reason why boundaries is my forte is when I did my master's in psychodynamic psychotherapy, that was my research dissertation, was on the therapeutic frame and experiences of clients challenging the therapeutic, what we would say challenging the therapeutic frame. I mean, I don't think clients consciously challenge the frame.
What is the frame, please?
So just going back to the therapeutic frame, that is the time of the session, the date, the holding of the client within that 50 minutes.
Their
session,
space,
their
that
space,
time, yeah.
Absolutely, yeah.
Okay.
There's lots more to it than that, but that's basically it. It's, how you hold that client in mind during their session time. So do they contact in between sessions? Do they arrive late? Do they arrive on time? Do they arrive early?
Yeah, interesting, because that tells you so much about a person.
100%.
Yeah, for sure. And is that prudent to actually contact in between sessions?
Well,
And does that cross a
depends.
boundary?
Well, depends if we're talking about classic psychodynamic therapy, and I'm currently in the process of training to be a psychoanalyst. So that's much more in depth than psychodynamic therapy. It's the same principles as psychodynamic therapy, but it's more intense.
Okay.
So back in the days of Freudian, Kleinian psychoanalysis, you'd be laying on the couch and come in 4 to 5 times a week.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
I need that.
I'll leave that for you to think about. What was your question? You said, is it prudent to contact in between sessions?
Yeah.
So if you think about, if you were going to see your analyst 4 or 5 times a week, you might not need to message in between because you've got that containment over the whole week. Psychodynamic therapy uses the essence of psychoanalysis. It's using all the same kind of theory and thought around the unconscious processes, but is either once or twice a week.
Okay.
So sometimes you might have a client that can't contain what's going on for them.
And
then they might need to contact the therapist. Now, what I say to my clients is, you can contact me, I might not respond.
Yeah, for sure.
So it's not that I'm saying don't do it, because that's really punitive. And depending on, and I say it depends, because it does depend. And sometimes I might say to a client, if you think it's helpful, email me with some thoughts that you've got, which I know we were talking about journaling earlier on, weren't we? So just, if you need to get something out and send it to me, then, you know, I'm not going to respond to that, but at least I can look at it before our next session and I know kind of some thoughts.
That's going to be the,
But would I encourage clients to contact me in between sessions? No.
No.
Because actually, I think there is something about psychologically feeling contained and boundaried within that 50-minute session. Because ideally what we want the client to express how they're feeling, free associate, talk about, you know, whatever comes into their mind, and then be able to kind of get back up and be their adult self as they leave.
Yeah, for sure.
We don't really want regressions in between.
No.
But that happens.
Yeah, definitely. So tell me more around why you're so interested in the boundaries side of it and why that's so important to you.
Because I think it's so fruitful for the work. It really is. I mean, it tells me so much, like I've already said, I think it really tells you a lot about the client and what their patterns of relating, what might have happened to them in their early experiences. You know, when we've got a client, and this is, I am just kind of talking generally here, and I'm not talking about any specific client at all. So if any material can be identified, I've amalgamated lots of different clients. So you might have a client who had a depressed parent, caregiver that wasn't held in mind, wasn't thought about, what needs weren't met.
Yeah, sure.
And then that will manifest in the therapy, because it will.
Yeah, of course.
Get going.
Yeah.
So that might then mean if there's a break in the therapeutic work, like if I take annual leave, then they can feel dropped.
Yeah, that abandonment.
And what you can find is that the week after the holiday, you might get a client who either doesn't turn up or turns up early, or might contact in between. All sorts of information can be gathered.
Because that's their behaviour based on, like, that's their, like, trauma response. Yeah. Interesting.
Yeah.
And what sort of work do you do with people around boundaries and setting boundaries?
Okay. Well, first of all, that information that I've just been talking about around the therapeutic frame will give me loads of information around their ability to manage their own boundaries and their own internal boundaries. I think understanding your own boundaries within yourself around your emotions, so knowing how much you can contain of your own psychological responses and emotional responses to things will also probably give you an indication of how well you're managing your boundaries externally. And sometimes we might see the external boundaries that are an issue in the person's life, and they might say, oh, I really struggle with saying no.
People
For
pleasing.
example, people pleasing. We might see that and that might be a presenting issue that someone comes to the therapy with, like, oh, I'm struggling to say no at work, I'm overwhelmed, but I'll just smile and say yes. And then I'll be thinking about, will that happen in the therapy, that they'll smile and say yes when actually they're crying inside and they want to be able to express it. So it's gone.
How do you then work with somebody to then establish that? Because I mean, I've done so much work on boundaries throughout probably maybe the last 7 years, and I have got really clear boundaries in most areas of my life now. There's a few areas that it slips away, and actually since I've done that, it protects my space a lot more. It allows me to be able to say no. It allows me to say, actually, I've got too much on this week, I need to do this. Or but the more recent boundaries I hadn't got quite right was work boundaries, where I'm working too late into the evening, I'm still replying to clients at 9 o'clock at night, and I'm never getting any downtime. I think I'm helping, I think I'm doing something for everybody else, but at the end of the day, it's detrimenting me because I'm never switching off. How do you then like start to implement those boundaries, like with that person there who's saying yes all the time, yes, what's the next step to then be able to work through that?
Well, I guess it's identifying a pattern.
Yes.
So if you've already done lots of work on your boundaries, you know, what was it before that meant that you couldn't say no? Because it will be partly that's probably manifesting itself again elsewhere. So I can hear from the language that you're using that perhaps you're hoping for if you just do this, this and this, which could be more of a CBT approach. Whereas I think it's about understanding your unconscious processes around why that boundary might be more difficult to say no to.
Yeah, 100%.
And do you remember me earlier saying around internal and external boundaries? So it sounds to me from what you're describing, you've worked really hard on external boundaries, like saying no to people so that they don't kind of physically come into your space. But then what I think you're talking about is your internal boundaries. So it's understanding where things are being expressed and how they're being expressed and what might be held in. And I think, you know, both things are interchangeable.
Yeah,
but
for sure.
That's what it sounds like to me. You're talking about.
And we all know where that comes from. That's that giant fear of failure.
But it's and that's horrible, isn't it? To feel like you're going to fail something. And I think a lot of people watching will understand that.
Yeah, and I think that links into your people pleaser, doesn't it? Because that's probably their fear of letting somebody down, isn't it? It's that if I say yes to everything, then I'm not going to let anybody down. But the only person I'm letting down is effectively me by putting that in place.
But I'd also be wondering around why people would be, what are they avoiding by pleasing somebody else? You know, what's happening there? What is there an avoidance of being upset? Is there an avoidance of?
But then this links into, we've got a load of questions that are going to come through, and I know what you're going to say to every answer. But it's all links back into like that, well, what's happened previously and how that then impacts and influences.
Sure. Yeah.
And I know you're going to say that.
And it isn't just the external experiences, it's what's happened very early on. So psychoanalysis and psychodynamic therapy is about your very early experiences. And I'm talking, and this might sound a bit wacko, but I'm talking about, you know, even from the moment of creation. You know, how did that creation of yourself happen?
Oh, 100%. Yeah, I've heard of stuff. I mean, I don't know how true this is. This is my hearsay. My very fact-checked knowledge. No, it's
Yeah.
not. But like how your parents were when they brought you up. Was there alcohol involved? Was there drug involved?
All of that
How have
stuff.
they then been in their relationships? Like, has there been shouting, abuse? Like,
Absolutely.
that all comes through, doesn't it?
It
That was
absolutely
my
does.
yeah.
It absolutely does. And epigenetics is part of that. So what
What
gets
does epigenetics
what
mean?
gets passed down generationally through the DNA.
Okay.
And I've been doing a lot of kind of reading around this because my grandparents were Polish and they escaped concentration camps. So there's something I think around being attacked from all sides. I'm in the middle of writing a paper around it. I think there's something about that feeling of, you know, being attacked from all sides by people in life that I think is a unconscious process because Poland was invaded from all
And you
sides.
think that's something that you feel?
Yeah, for sure. I think at times I can feel very invaded or attacked at times, and it's understanding, you know, where's this played out in my ancestry. So kind of tracing this back to Poland, which is where my ancestors, you know, originate. You know, Poland as a country got completely lost and then regained its borders, I think, 3 times. I need to fact check that. But there's something around that then that, you know, is within me of, you know.
And when you've done work previously, you can't think of anything else that's happened through your like conscious memories and stuff. There's a lot.
There'll be loads, and you know, there's a reason why therapists usually become therapists because
Really?
wounded healers. Yeah.
Would you be happy to share?
I'm not going to share too much, but yeah, you know, I have got a trauma history. I think it's one of the reasons why I know so much about it because I think the biggest tool a therapist has got is having had their own therapy.
Relatability.
And having had their own work and doing your own work and continuing to do your own work. I'm about to start psychoanalysis 4 times a week. So,
Really?
yeah, where I'll be laying on the couch. That's part of my psychoanalysis training, is that I have to have had that experience myself, even though I've had probably collectively 17 years of my own therapy.
Are you looking forward to that?
I find part of it exciting and part of it absolutely terrifying, even though I've had lots of therapy before. Yeah.
Because I always really look forward to therapy. Like I really, really enjoy it. And then I get to a point normally with it where I'm probably reaching where I've got what I need to out of it. And then I'm like, oh, I've got what I need to out of this now. And then that's it. And that'll be a period of time where I'll go without it for a length of time. But I always really enjoy it. I think it's because I really enjoy getting to know myself better.
Yeah.
I want to know what is going on here.
Yeah.
And I want to understand it all. And this is what we're going to link into talking about the competition. For those of you that are listening, I competed in the British Equipped yesterday. I come 3rd in Britain on body weight. I don't know. I didn't even know I'd come 3rd. So it was an absolute surprise when I got given like the medal.
You didn't realise that you
No, I didn't realise. So basically there's a girl who actually is coached by my coach Holly, and she is queen of powerlifting, as I like to call her. She is just incredible. She handles herself, she conducts herself in such an amazing way. Like she's so relaxed. She's competed a lot to a really high standard, and she just performs incredibly. So she won. And then there was a lot of competition in the 76 class. There was myself and 3 other ladies who are pretty much neck and neck in different areas. So it was going to be really, really competitive. And Rachel come 2nd, and me and the 3 other ladies actually drew on body weight. So we all totaled the same. The sub-junior, I mean, she's a junior and she's smashing it, the same as the seniors, actually point scored 0.5, but something happened where she chipped some records.
Right.
So that meant that she could, I think, I'm not sure how they were explaining it to me, it was quite controversial, but she basically could have kept the records, but she couldn't have come 3rd. Oh. But I won on body weight because I was like 2.5 points better based on the actual overall scoring based on my body weight. Knew
Right.
there was a reason I was a light 76, all this eating
Right.
I've been doing. But yeah, so yeah, come third. Squat PB, 200 kilos. Bench, we're going to discuss in a minute, but 105 kilos, which was a -5. And a 10 kilo deadlift PB, which was the first one I've hit in 22 months. It's been a long time.
Yeah.
But yeah, so Claudia walked in this morning and I said, what do you think about sports therapy? Was my first question.
Yeah.
Because I had a really emotional day. And I said to Derek this morning, I'm probably going to get tearful talking about it here because it's so fresh. I finished the session, I finished the actual competition. I hit my deadlift PB. I celebrated. I don't normally do much celebration. I'm normally like, oh, it's just another one in the box. But it's been coming for such a long time. And I got out and the lip was going and the eyes were watering. And I was like, I didn't know whether to smile and celebrate or like cry because I was so upset with how the day had gone. And I spoke to my coach about it and we were talking about like resilience, managing emotions, because my training is going so well at the minute. But when I get to the platform, I'm just not putting it together on the day.
Yeah.
And I want to be able to do better.
What do you mean? Here I come in.
Oh.
What do you mean by putting it together? Because I think I know what you mean on a conscious level. But what does that mean?
Carrying over what I do in training and being able to perform on the day to the standard that I'm training at.
Right, so that's it on the conscious level, isn't it?
Correct,
But
yeah.
there's something also about feeling like you're together kind of internally from what you're describing too.
Yeah, correct. Because and I can acknowledge this, and I hope I don't come across arrogant, I'm very successful. And I want to be very successful in everything I do.
Yeah. Can I also just interject, because I thought this was, I'm interested in this as well, Katie, when you said I celebrated and I don't normally. So I wondered about that for you and whether it then feels like you shouldn't be celebrating.
No, because I don't, do I? And Derek has to remind me to celebrate things.
Okay, so that's really important then as well.
Yeah,
isn't it?
because something will happen and I'll, like we all, it's terrible, isn't it? It's the whole world, isn't it? That one negative comment on Instagram, but there's 50 positive. We always see the negative. Or you've just achieved, like I've just total PB'd, squat 200, which was a huge milestone for me, and deadlift PB'd, but I'm still upset about the one thing that didn't go my way.
Yeah.
Because
but you were able to celebrate it momentarily. Though,
yeah,
right?
there's a picture.
Yes, and it's been captured, and it's a gorgeous photo.
Thank you.
It's really lovely, and I wonder if that's the kind of thing that you need to do more of to help you to kind of keep yourself together internally, is capture those moments.
Yeah, possibly. Yeah, because there's always the next thing. There is always the next thing, and that's probably part of what, like Derek said with, I hit a big milestone with the business just before Christmas.
Yeah.
And he was like, let's go out for dinner to celebrate. Yeah. And I'm like, yeah, okay. But then let's do this as well. Like there's always that but.
Yeah.
And
So
it's
hard to
taking
be
that,
in the moment.
Yeah,
sometimes.
100%. And I think we spoke a little bit about this at the beginning, but basically what John said, he was asking me about my process. And because I manifest a lot about the day, I visualize the day, I think about where I want to be, but I'm always thinking about the end result because the expectation is the end result. And he was saying you need to look at the process. It needs to be tick the first lift off, tick the second lift off, tick the third lift off. And I guess me being together on the day, now in hindsight, I look back at the day and I'll tell you exactly what happened. I finished my bench and I threw my second bench in my face. I didn't throw it purposefully, but my shoulder give, I lost the bar, and I come out and I'm so pissed off because I've benched 110 kilos for the last 2 years and I don't want to bench 110 kilos again. There was 112 on the bar. But it would have been better, but it was so minutely better that I wanted 120, and I knew I'm not going to get that 120 now because I only had one more attempt left. We're not just going to throw it on there for the sake of it. And I was like, I can't be arsed. and look back now and I'm like, that wasn't what I was thinking, but I'm so pissed off because I haven't got that possibility to get that last thing.
Yeah.
And it's like, where do I now need to work? And I want to do the work because I don't want to turn up again at it and have that attitude, because then I am disappointed myself for having that attitude.
So couple of things. You are so not a I can't be arsed person.
I know. Why did that come out?
So that's interesting, isn't it? Because you can be
Yeah.
arsed and you really are a driven person. So that's the first thing. So it's incongruous with what's actually going on internally. So, and then secondly, where was I going with this? It's interesting. I forgot my second point. There's something about being in the here and now. So because if your mind is going on to the next thing, you are not in the here and now. And I don't know whether there's something about you feeling like I've got an injury or I've got a pain, so I need to be out of my body a little bit and on to the next thing. Or it might be I might get overwhelmed if I actually take in where I am. But it sounds like your mind being on the next thing is stopping you from really taking in the positives, but also that moment of, right, my wrist has gone like this, I'm now gonna...
Because it's that instant failure, it's that failure that I can't deal with, isn't it? It's that the emotional response, the resilience.
So what's the emotional response? Because you're talking about failure, so what's the feeling?
I'm not going to hit the end result that I've expected of myself.
Because that's a thought.
Disappointment.
Yeah. But you have, but you have fought through and worked really hard on so many levels. Do you see what I mean?
Yeah, of course. And that's why I get frustrated with myself, because I have, here we go. Because I have achieved so much, and I know I have.
Yeah.
But then I hold on to the emotion so deeply, and then it links into not being good enough. There you go. We knew we were going to get there.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's where it goes.
Yeah. So if you're pushing forward and trying to, and I don't want to ignore how you're feeling right now, but
no, you're fine.
Otherwise we're repeating another pattern of just ignoring how you feel. But if you keep going this way, you're ignoring this feeling.
Yeah, definitely, and that's then where I need to work on. That's where the work needs to come in. Which all stems back to everything. We end up looping around on this conversation. I think we spoke about it last time. It comes into like not feeling good enough, and I don't mind sharing. It all links into like never feeling good enough at school. I don't know where it all comes from, because it's
you
that.
Do,
yeah, 100%.
But in here, there's something about that resurfacing, and then it feels like it's happening again. Do you remember me saying to you earlier, around journaling? And I think sometimes journaling can be really unhelpful if it's around something traumatic or it's negative thoughts, because you could re-traumatise yourself. But I guess what we're talking about here is something resurfacing from the past because it's not quite been worked through. Yeah,
definitely. And then working through that on a deeper level to understand that more.
Yeah.
Because that keeps looping round.
Yeah.
That does loop round.
Yeah.
Fantastic. I told you I'd cry today, didn't I? Do you want to touch on anything else to do with boundaries? Or should we kick through questions?
Let's go to some questions.
Okay, cool. So I'm going to read them from my phone. I'm going to go through, because there was an episode that we did previously that we didn't put out, and I just want to get those questions that we went through before that we missed.
Yeah.
We did communication with partners. We did work-life balance. How to set boundaries with situations and people that are difficult for you.
Okay. So, creating some distance, I think, is really helpful.
Okay.
So if it feels like it might be intimidating to talk to, I mean, it depends on what we're talking about here. So I'm just going to go with a scenario in my head, right? So say we're talking, because I think I experience this a lot with various clients in my sessions where they will talk about struggling to have difficult discussions with their parents. That can often kind of come up quite a lot.
I think this would be actually really helpful for this particular person.
Yeah, okay. So rather than straight away hitting it head on, like turning up to the house or kind of Christmas dinner, right, I need to set some boundaries with you and I'm not doing this, that, the other, you know.
And you are not in charge of the turkey today.
Exactly. And by the way, you're never babysitting the kids again. No, let's not do that first out. And actually, you know, that's going to be incredibly overwhelming for everyone, isn't it?
Yeah.
So maybe taking some time to write it down. You know, what would you like to say to your parents? Unfiltered, whatever that might look like. So type it, write it, whatever.
You've said to me before as well, like what are you hoping to achieve?
I think that's really helpful. So first
Yeah.
of all, get it out somewhere, to a friend, on paper, on a laptop, whatever. Get it out, and then think about, you know, how much of that could be said unfiltered. How much of it do you want to say? And you're right at that point of what are you hoping to achieve?
Yeah.
Now, what is the end goal? But also just acknowledging how that feels for you to get this stuff out. And also, if if we're using the example of parents, you know, you've had a relationship with your parents your whole life. So these patterns of relating with your parents are not going to change.
Sometimes they're the most
quickly.
difficult ones, though. Family are the
Absolutely.
most difficult ones.
Well, I think so, but I think what's really important to hold on to is the only person you can change is yourself.
Yeah, massively.
So sometimes I will get clients that come into sessions and like, my partner's this, my brother's that, my sister's this, and I'm like, okay, but you're the one here in therapy.
Literally.
So let's help you understand yourself and what you can do. So going back to the scenario with parents, really think about, number one, what you're hoping for.
Yeah.
If you're hoping that they're going to do something different, good luck.
Yeah.
They're not the ones in therapy. And
Yeah.
they will have to do something different if you do something different. So if you go in and have a conversation with them and the old pattern of relating is it ends up in an argument and you storm out. If you do something different, like, I don't know, talk to them individually or text them first, or you say to yourself, I am not going to raise my voice. I'm not going to lose my temper. I may need to walk out, but I'm not going to storm out. I might just say, I need 2 minutes to just talk about this. So taking some space for yourself. But if you do something different, then they can't do the same thing because you're shifting, you know, the boundaries in that way.
But it is about like setting boundaries is 100% how you behave.
It's about how you behave, yes, but it's also focusing on how you feel.
Yeah.
So it's understanding the emotional response that you're getting from other people, and it's also understanding that sometimes when other people are not self-aware, they will project their feelings and experiences into other people, which psychodynamically we call projective identification, which I'm not going to go into here. But sometimes, just in a nutshell, noticing how you feel before you go into somewhere. Like, you know, when you went into your powerlifting comp, noticing how you were feeling, which we were talking about earlier on, weren't we? Like, actually, I'm quite chill.
So
and then
relaxed.
I'm walking in and I'm like, overwhelming.
Still totally relaxed.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because like my friends were saying to me, like, they've been at comps with me before and they were like so relaxed. Derek was saying to me, I'm so relaxed. I was chatting to people really relaxed, like not in like a fucking
you're
here,
not,
like,
you're not
like
split off.
blasé, don't mean like obviously I knew I had a job to do, but I was so relaxed.
Yeah.
So you just wanted it to go well, but things did go better than they did the last time.
Yeah.
So 100%.
Yeah.
Next. You want to go more?
Yeah.
Go on.
So yeah, it's also paying attention to how you are feeling and noticing, if there's a real intense feeling of anger around people, is all of the anger yours? Or is someone else kind of split off from their anger and projecting it into you? And just kind of trying to make sense of, who you are and what you're feeling, and not getting caught up in getting into an argument with people.
100%. Okay, so the next question was actually how to set boundaries with people, including family members that can trigger you. So we've covered that one.
Yeah.
Right, I just want to make sure that we get all the ones that we got from last time. Yeah, okay, cool. So these are the ones that I actually got sent through. There was quite a lot of them from the group this morning. They're all different areas.
Okay.
So anything around emotional eating, spiraling, and self-sabotage.
Right, okay. So if I think about emotional eating, and I know that, this is just a snapshot and a generalisation.
Do you want me to give you a little bit about the scenario of the person?
I'm probably going to say the same thing.
Go on then.
So it'd be understanding early experiences, because it will be around your early experiences in childhood. Eating is an instant gratification. It's something that we can access really quickly, and it can make us feel better really quickly. And we do need it. We need to eat, don't we? So, it's really difficult, and especially in this day and age where
plentiful,
so easily available to us, whereas in the past we'd have had to have worked for it, we've had to have gone to dig it up out the ground, so we're expending energy, blah blah blah, all of that kind of stuff. But it will go back to your early experiences around feeding and your family and what you were fed emotionally. So
I'm laughing because I got told off for talking about my mum once on a podcast episode.
Oh, okay, right.
But again, it's that like how many of us grow up in especially of our generation, like the diet culture, isn't it? Like diets and food and overweight is just so much more and more and more and more. And now we've got the joy of fat loss injections. Like that's what you're seeing your parents doing, that's then the behaviours you're going to learn.
Sure.
Like
yes, so it's that modelling. What is your family model to you around eating and food and meal times and togetherness? There is that part to it, but then like I said, then there's also, let's go right back to early childhood experiences of, and you might not know any of this, but you will have a felt sense of what it was like.
It's so funny. This isn't funny, you're going to give me the sympathetic look now. It's hilarious because Derek needs to eat everything in sight, and he moans that like food's just not readily available in his house basically because it needs cooking. And then when I link back to like my childhood, like we would go shopping and it would be like a race to see who could get to the cupboards the first to eat the donuts, because if you didn't get your donut it was going to be gone the next day. So I'm like, I say to him, I'm like, bloody, have you eaten all of that? And he's like, yeah, you could just buy some more, Kate. And I'm like, I know I could buy some more, but it's like that's where that comes from. And it's like, we don't need to be like Scroogey about food, but I hate sharing food. But it all links back to that.
Absolutely.
And then having disordered eating, where does it come from?
Yeah. Because it sounds like there was a worry you weren't going to...
I just wanted my bloody donut. I didn't want it then, but I had to have it then because it weren't going to be there otherwise.
Right, so it wasn't even about satisfying a craving. It was about making sure you got
my donut.
What was yours and enjoying something at that point. Well, not even enjoying it.
No, because you're like, if I don't get it, somebody else will.
Right, so we're talking about not being able to enjoy something earlier on, weren't we?
Oh God, yeah.
Because
100%.
actually, it's almost like a forced enjoyment of, I want this thing and I know it's nice, and I don't actually necessarily want it now, but I'm going to have it.
Because and then that links into me and probably many other people, but there's something open in the house and you're like, well, if I don't eat it now, then somebody I might else. Yeah, literally. 100%. Anything else on that one? The next one was links on childhood trauma, food, and what might they be?
Give me a bit more than that.
Okay, let me help this question.
Yeah.
How do you, if you can't afford to have private therapy and you haven't gone through the NHS, or you have gone through the NHS and you do want to start digging into this stuff and that's not within your means, how do you actually start to do that, start to work through some of this?
And I think that's really difficult, and I'm sorry that people are in that situation, because I think long-term trauma therapy should be accessible on the
Massively.
NHS for free, because I think if long-term psychodynamic therapy was available in every single NHS trust, I think we would have a lot less problems.
Of course.
And I really absolutely think that. Can you go and do a lot of digging for yourself? I'm not sure you can, because how do you work on your own unconscious?
I guess, how do you start to understand yourself? Like, how do you sit and spend some time with your feelings to actually start to process them? I mean, I can sometimes, but I'm very self-aware.
And you've had therapy.
I've
You've
had
had a lot of
therapy,
therapy.
yeah.
Do you see what
With
I mean?
different people as well.
Yeah. I think if you've had 6 to 12 weeks of CBT, and I'm not knocking CBT because there are some fantastic CBT therapists out there. Hirul and Kieran O'Sullivan Day are two of them. They're brilliant. So check those two out. But I think if that you have had is that, and then, you know, you're starting to realise that there's some stuff from the past around your childhood that's an issue, I think that is tricky to work through on your own. I really do. But what you're asking me is, what does somebody do?
Yeah,
If they're realising that and then they can't access therapy. I would really kind of think about your internal processes and how you manage your feelings, and allow yourself to be upset. Understanding what your triggers are. I think that might have been something you were going to ask me as well.
It is definitely a trigger question, yeah.
So
that was actually the next question.
So do you remember earlier on I was saying about how notice how you're feeling? So at the beginning of the day, really paying attention to how you're feeling when you wake up. And I do borrow from CBT sometimes with clients, because they can become overwhelmed emotionally and not really understand what some of their triggers are. So I might ask them to just note down, either give it a numerical score, or give themselves like a traffic light system.
Axel, come here.
To just try and break down and kind of chunk how they're feeling in the morning. You know, just notice, how are you feeling first thing in the morning? What would you give it out of 10? What would you give it if it was a traffic light system? Are you feeling, yay, I'm feeling all right? Or are you feeling, oh, I feel a bit tired, or a little bit of a sinking feeling? Or I'm just feeling absolutely shit and I'm not coping? And just making a note of that. Was it something you dreamt about? Something kind of...
So you would then dig into that and then go, so this is... which we spoke about journaling, and I'm talking a lot about journaling at the minute with various different people for different reasons.
Yeah.
And I don't like journaling where you just projectile vomit onto a page.
Yeah.
I do encourage people to projectile vomit on a page, but then it needs to...
It's got to be contained. It goes back to boundaries again, doesn't it?
Goes back to having a
There's got to
purpose.
be some containment around it.
Yeah, because it's got to be like, how are you feeling? Why are you feeling like that? Like, where's that coming
where's
from?
it coming from?
Sitting with that. But then also, I'm really trying to hone in at the minute on that, reframing it. Like trying to draw something positive from that situation, or something you've learnt from it. And then finishing on the gratitude. Like, what have you taken from this situation? If you've sat with yourself and you really have done the work, and you're like, I always go back to, let's use a powerlifting example, because like, how am I, this is quite raw, isn't it?
Yeah.
How am I feeling? Obviously I'm feeling very happy because I have achieved some really incredible things, but I'm also feeling disappointed because I felt like a failure. I felt like I wasn't good enough. And then we've spoken about, where does that come from? Well, that comes from me being at school. It comes from having to do extra English. It comes from being dyslexic and not really realising I was dyslexic. And then it's like, the reframe of that is, I aim to excel at fucking everything. And I do. 90% of the stuff I excel at, because I'm so determined that I will not be not good enough again.
Yeah.
But then that's also got me to some incredible places, like where I am now, the people I'm able to help now, the business I have, the people I then meet. All of this is down to that girl who never felt good enough.
Yeah.
And that's the positive I take from it, because I'm also incredibly grateful for it.
100%.
And that's how I then reframe it.
Yes, but you can do that because you've had, hopefully, good enough experiences of therapy where you've been able to work through some of that and you've had some containment around it. Whereas I think somebody that's had, you know, very few therapy sessions or isn't able to access the therapy is not going to necessarily have those resources.
No, and I hope the people in my group, I coach them to be able to help them with that.
100%. I've got no doubt about that whatsoever.
Yeah.
But I think that there's something about, you can't do trauma work on your own. So let's just be really clear about that. You're just not going to be able to work through your trauma on your own. But can you balance some of what happens in your brain and in your body? So I describe it, I don't know whether I've said this to you before, I think we innately as human beings kind of hold on to negative experiences like Velcro.
Yeah, literally.
Because it would have helped us survive, you know, back in cave man and women times. I don't know why I've just said that, but
I'm being inclusive.
I'm trying to be inclusive.
Don't want to get told
and
off.
non-binary people in that time, and any trans people back in that time. Anyway, so we would have done that to survive. Yeah, held on to those negative experiences. The last time I went out and I tried to hunt for that thing, I got caught. So then next time I go and see a branch that I got caught on last time, my body responds as if it's going to happen again to help me to avoid the branch. Do you see?
Yeah, of course. So
this is where we're Velcroing the negative thing because it helps us to avoid something dangerous. When we've had traumatic experiences, our body is on red alert, and even minute triggers that have got a whiff of a similarity to things in the past can trigger us. So first of all, it's trying to consciously identify some of those triggers as much as you can, and calming your body down before you go out somewhere. So mindfulness, box breathing, controlled breathing. You can find apps on your mobile phone through your app store that
We've
will help
spoken
you.
Calm, Headspace.
All of that kind of stuff is really helpful before you go out somewhere, particularly say you are somebody, I'm going to talk about myself now, so I don't like going into lifts.
Okay.
I'm tracing this back to my grandparents being in a concentration camp. So they were trapped. I think that's in my DNA. But and I'm much better at it now. I will get in a lift.
But you have to do a big breath before you get in there.
I have to do some breathing before I get in there. So it's just, if you know there is a thing that sets you off, it's making sure that you're calm before you leave the house.
Can we talk on that a little bit though? Yeah. Like, so many people think that mindfulness, meditation and breathing has to be this.
No,
it literally can just be 1 to 2 minutes or a couple of breaths, like just to chill your. And we talk about powerlifting again. Like, I've got a client powerlifting comp in a few weeks' time, and one of the things I'll say to them all in part of their little welcome to the day, what to get out of the day, is you walk up to the platform, stop, take a breath, hold on to the bar, breathe out again, get underneath the bar, breathe out again, because that first squat, 70% of you are going to do something strange, and that's okay. Because you're nervous and it's your fight or flight response is shitting itself that you're just about to lift in front of. There's going to be a few people on the day. I'm not going to say how many there are, but there's going to be a few people there on the day, and they're doing it in front of people for the first time under a more pressured environment. Absolutely. And actually those breaths are just, let's calm the central nervous system, nervous system. Most of them will forget, but I'll remind them again for the next one.
And that's it, isn't it? It's most people will forget when they're about to walk into a lift or they're about to a lift.
But just take that one moment.
A lift, as a powerlifting lift, or like a confined space lift.
Yeah.
So this is why it's so important, and 100% agree with you. It doesn't have to be, I have to sit down and do a meditation for an hour. No, don't need to do that. Do I need to focus on my breath for at least 30 seconds and breathing in and breathing out?
Because it's calming your mind.
It's calming your mind. It's
present.
Training your body. It's being aware of your breath. Even if you don't calm it down, you've got an awareness of it. If you leave it to the day of the powerlifting comp, literally seconds before you get onto the stage, to breathe or focus your breathing, you're going to forget, because you're going to be like, oh my God, and your adrenaline levels, your cortisol levels are already skyrocketed. And this is why I say to people, do it first thing in the morning, before you've even woken up, just to calm that central nervous system
I have
down.
to.
I do it as well.
I've been breathing all my life.
But
I've only been breathing properly for the last 7 months. Because like we've spoken, like work stress, life stress. I wake up in the morning. I mean, I'd love to have blood work done and all those tests, and I'd love to understand how high my cortisol is.
Yeah.
Because I think it would shock me. But the other thing that we've done that's really powerful as well is I'd sometimes have to do a minute of breathing when I finish doing check-ins on a Monday before I go down to train, because if I take all this with me, all the client check-ins responses with me down to the gym, I'm not present in the session, and it can just calm that.
Yeah. So to answer the question around doing some trauma work, avoid, I would say, if you know you've got significant trauma from your childhood, I would avoid journaling the trauma. I would work on reinforcing the Teflon aspect of positivity, because you remember I was saying about Velcro with the negative, Teflon with the positive. It's sometimes for the majority of us, those positive experiences slide off.
Yeah.
So what things have gone well?
Yesterday. Literally.
Prime
It's so
example. So what's
apparent.
gone well? Are you someone that is a visual remember person? Do you need photographs? You know, that one if you celebrate with your hair, it's so lovely. You know, making a big thing of that. And
I always, when I hit a
holding on to
PB,
that.
when I go to John's on a Friday, I always rewatch my videos like 1,000 times and bore Derek with them. I'm like, Derek, look what I did. Look, we need to watch it again.
Yeah.
And he's like, he does it with me.
Yeah.
But on the 15th time, I think he is getting a bit bored.
But that's really good for you, because it's going in.
Yeah,
it's things
100%.
like that, and it's the same with people that have had traumatic experiences. Can you record a lovely walk? Can you record some? I mean, I don't know, what people like. Bird song. Can you take a photograph of something so that you fill your journal up with very small but lovely experiences, and then really pay attention to how that feels when you've got that picture in front of you.
And I think that, like, celebrating gratitude doesn't have to be this big thing where you're like, I'm alive today, I've got my health. No, it's that the dog does such a stupid on a walk and it makes me smile.
Yes, that exactly.
That exact little tiny thing. Your kids do something funny and they, oh God, I do love them, even though they're a pain in the butt. That's real gratitude.
Definitely.
Okay. We've got dealing with anxiety, but I think we've kind of spoken a little bit about that. I don't know how much more detail you want to go into.
Yeah, I mean, just
breathing, dealing with emotions.
Yeah, I think also
exercise.
Can I just say a bit about, also I think anxiety is usually a mask for other feelings underneath. You won't be surprised I'm going to say that. So usually, there will be some grief and some loss, some sadness underneath that anxiety, because it's masking something. So yes, manage the anxiety, but then some people might be scared to manage the anxiety because unconsciously there is something else driving it.
Do you think it's like a lack of control as well?
Lack of control?
I think a lot of anxiety for me comes down to lack of control.
Oh, what feeling like you're out of control.
And I think a lot of people would relate to that as well.
Well, I guess it's just reminding yourself of where you actually have got control in your life, because you've probably got far more control in your life.
I've got control of everything.
One probably has more control in their life than what it feels like, because maybe it just feels like everything is chaotic. But actually, you know, making then notes around actually what have I got control of and what can I do. So I know that I'm borrowing from CBT here, but I think without having a person's
what I did the
case
other
in front of me,
day,
it's difficult.
the control circles, influence change.
Yeah.
So what you can control in the middle, what you can then influence on the outer ring that steps into the control, what is actually in your influence, and then what can't you change.
Totally.
And then actually what is the situation, and then looping it into one of those 3 circles, and then being able to park that.
Yeah, definitely. A bit like what we were talking about with parents, you know, if you're hoping for them to suddenly have a personality transplant, that's not going to happen.
Oh, this one's a good one. Seeing something different in the mirror to others. So that's like body dysmorphia, I guess.
Yeah. Again, this is going back to what are you focusing on and why? So say you're seeing something different to other people. What is it that you're focusing on? So I know this can happen a lot with clients where they're like, well, you know, they will be focusing on a body part or
this particular client's quite new to her journey. She's probably with me 11, 12 weeks now, which I tell any client going on any transformation, you are not going to see the change in your body until 12 to 14 weeks. Because for first 4 weeks, your stranger that you've not seen for God knows how long might notice a difference. And then your family members and your closer family will notice it around 8 to 9 weeks. But it isn't this. I'm going off on one. It's why I don't do a 12-week coaching program, because at week 12 you still haven't really seen the difference. It's 12 to 14 weeks that you actually see that difference, and that's when you're just moving out of your habit building phase. Absolutely. And this client isn't there yet, so she's not quite seen it, and she wants to see those differences in those photos, but she just needs to give it another couple of weeks. I know she will, because I think she's dropped like 5 to 6 kilos now. And she's got big centimetre drops, but they're just not quite there yet.
Okay.
But they will be.
It goes back to this pattern that we've been describing, isn't it? It's actually acknowledging.
Oh, she's a high performer.
5 kilos.
Yeah,
That's
massively.
massive. It's brilliant.
And healthier, more energy, in the gym again 3 times a week, like squatting 50 kilos. Amazing. Like, she hasn't done any of that stuff since she was doing football.
So that's just
years
fantastic.
ago.
And it's, you know, being in the present moment and recognising those achievements.
Yeah.
There was something else I was going to say. It's interesting what you have said around, you know, not seeing change in 6 to 12 sessions. And I can completely identify with that as a therapist. You know, some people have come to me and they're like, I want 6 sessions of therapy, and they've got, you know, complex trauma. I'm like, no. No. We
had this conversation, Derek and I, because we had therapy for 6 sessions, and he finished it and he was like, no, not working for me. And it wasn't until 6 to 9 months later that he said, actually, I'm seeing and feeling the benefits of this, to now we're back in therapy again, because he's like, actually, that did work. That stuff did work. And I was like, it really does.
Yeah. And sometimes it's not until kind of weeks, years later. I know there's stuff that my first therapist said to me, talking a long time ago, that all of a sudden I'm like, oh, crikey, I get it now. Yeah. I remember her saying to me something about, you know, there must have been some really positive experiences in your life for you to be as together as you are. And I'm like, oh, it was all crap at the time. I remember
that's because your self-worth was so low at that moment in time.
At that moment in time, there were parts of my life that were not okay. Hence, you know, going to the therapy back then. But now, you know, it's like a repeating pattern of actually maybe, you know, you're much better than what you think you are. And I'm like, that's
maybe
been
I
said
am.
so many times. Maybe
there's truth in what others say. Okay, we've got perfectionism mindset. Why even with a win it's not good enough, or do not believe it? So I think she's trying to say, we've spoken about that loads today. Oh no, it's the word that I don't think I can say. Self-deprecation and negative body image. We've spoken about that in wins. Okay, she's not asked a question, but I've got a client who has lost 8.5 stone,
Wow.
and she was running around the gym with an 8.5 stone person on her the other day.
Wow.
So that was quite funny.
Okay, so they really
But she
understood what
sometimes really suffers with imposter syndrome. There is a lot of trauma there.
Okay.
She's told how well she's done so many days, and she's really struggles to accept that feedback, and it's something we're working on at the minute. And again, we've actually been working together around 12 weeks.
Yeah. So
and
it's going to take time.
This week she's just starting to, this question is obviously acknowledging it, the penny's dropped.
Yeah.
She's starting to see what I'm saying to her, which is actually you're self-sabotage and you're being mean to yourself. You've actually achieved this. How does she start to work through that?
Well, a bit like I said earlier on, it's hard to work through this stuff on your own because some of this stuff is unconscious. Some of it is conscious now, isn't it?
She's getting, it is a consciousness.
Yeah.
And acknowledging that's a massive success.
Huge. But it sounds to me like maybe psychologically it's going to take time for her to catch up. Because you know this as well. Like when people lose weight, they still see the bigger person in the mirror because it takes time.
Still do now.
Yeah, it takes time to recognise, you know, kind of who you are. And it goes back to boundaries as well and recognising where you are in your own skin. Because that can take time.
Yeah, massively.
Too.
But I think it doesn't ever go totally. I think you always still have that there, because that little fear that sometimes we have that we don't want to get as big as we were before is what gives us our drive and our determination to have a little bit more self-control and actually look after ourselves a bit bigger, after ourselves a bit better, because we don't want to go back to where we were before, because we enjoy this person we are now. I've been guilty of still ordering size medium and large clothes when I'm a small, and I just sometimes forget, and I order everything in 2 sizes, and then it all turns up and none of it fits, and I'm like, for God's sake, I'm going on holiday in 2 weeks.
You sometimes lose perspective.
Absolutely.
And look, whether it's exercise or whether it's kind of being kind to yourself, this is a lifelong experience we're talking about here. We're not talking about quick fixes.
No.
We're not talking about let's do 12 weeks of completely ragging yourself.
No.
Rugged.
And actually doing the work over that 12 weeks isn't just about your body, it is about your mind as well.
It's about your mind, and this takes time, and it's a lifelong process. So being kind to yourself needs to be a daily thing, and it needs to be a lifelong process, not of like, oh, well, let's just be kind to myself.
Yeah, because if you're 30, you've got 30 years worth of trauma there, and it's exactly the same as habits around food, habits around behaviour. If you are 30 years old, that previous 30 years is influencing how you behave now. So if you're now trying to make the positive changes, it isn't going to happen in an 8 to 12 week process. It's going to take time for you to embed those habits, understand those emotions. Last question then, how to help our children with anxiety when we struggle ourselves?
Right, okay. So I work, as you know, with children, young people and families, and very rarely do I work with a young person in isolation because parents need the support too. So there is no point in me working with a young person that's struggling with their anxiety if, like this person has said, they're struggling as well.
Yeah.
So it's doing things together. Understanding your own process. So all the things that we've talked about earlier on today in this talk around controlled breathing, keeping yourself calm, because, and do you remember me saying around projective identification?
Yeah.
So children are like sponges. They are going to absorb the atmosphere in the household. So if you know you are an anxious parent, and well done for identifying that you're an anxious person, work on yourself as much as you can, and the more you improve yourself and contain your anxiety and manage your anxiety, I can pretty much guarantee it will help your young person's anxiety.
And she is
well.
Doing that, the lady in question.
Fantastic.
She is doing that.
Fab.
And
Fab.
like working through those, like to be able to ask that question as well, to actually have that.
Yeah.
And actually she acknowledges that a lot of her anxiety is dependent on whether she's done those things to look after herself.
Okay.
Has she eaten well today? Has she gone to the gym? Has she got some movement in? Has she got some daylight in?
Yeah.
And then that's having a positive impact on her children because
Yeah.
she feels good.
Yeah.
So the atmosphere in the house is more
Yeah.
upbeat, it's positive, everyone's
Yeah.
having a good time.
Great. Keep doing it. Keep doing it. Keep focusing on yourself because you are important. You know, like it was you that carried that baby inside you. And without you, they wouldn't be there, right?
Yeah.
So you need to put, you know, the old saying of put your oxygen mask on first on the aeroplane before you go and try and help someone else out. That is the priority, is really, you know, focus on yourself and what you can do because they're watching. Kids are watching, they're seeing what you're doing and they're going to pick up on those habits exactly like you've just said. If this person's concentrating on looking after themselves, eating really well, then I can pretty much guarantee everyone else will either be eating well because you're buying the same food or they're seeing that. Yeah. And if they're seeing you go out for a walk and seeing the benefits of you coming back and you're a bit more relaxed, they'll be like, oh, mum's a bit more relaxed, maybe I will do it too.
And actually it's bringing them out with you, like getting the kids out the house, getting them feeling good because if we're trying to influence our children should be influenced how we're living our lives. My sister is the biggest advocate for this. Like she's got 2 little ones and she has to be active. Like she loves being active and those kids are out on scooters, they're out on bikes, they're all going out, they're going out as a family and it's a non-negotiable for them because she needs that movement because that looks after her space and actually the kids need to and we're trying to encourage Derek's kids to come out with us but we only get them once a week so it's a little bit different.
But and it's also making sure that there's downtime too. Like if the kids see you getting some downtime, doing some meditation, chilling, reading a book, having some space, you know, you can encourage them to do the same thing. Absolutely. Because it doesn't have to all be, I mean, I appreciate, you know, I like movement as well. But as probably seen today.
Somebody sit us both down.
I know. But, you know, it's important to get that downtime too. So it's modelling, really modelling. For yourself, the things that you know that really help you and nurture you and encouraging that in your children too. And it will be done by osmosis. It will be being done because you're doing it, they're watching it.
Yeah. Should we finish there?
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you so much for joining me today. I really, really enjoyed this again and hopefully you'll be back soon. I'll find a time in my life when I need you. Where can people follow you? Because you've got an incredible team of associates.
Yes, I have. Yes. Can I just give a shout out to my associates? So Dr. Luke Ward, you can contact him on drlukeward@gmail.com. My other associate, Claire Hughes, she's got a website. I will put all of this out on Instagram and Katie, you can maybe share it or whatever. So Luke works with children, young people and adults and he's an integrative therapist, got loads of experience in working with the LGBTQ community. Claire is based in Oxford, works online as well. She's a psychodynamic therapist, the same as me. Really lovely, really experienced and knows loads and loads and loads about trauma. And then my third associate is Aaron Marshall. I believe his email is aaronmarshallpsychotherapy@gmail.com. Aaron is a child and adolescent psychotherapist, psychodynamic psychotherapist, and he also works with adults as well. So my team is brilliant. They're all supervised by me. I'm so lucky to have them. Absolute pleasure working with them. I've got no spaces at the moment because, as you probably heard earlier on, I'm training to be a psychoanalyst. It's going to take me ages. I'm having my own psychoanalysis. So I might have some spaces, but I have got my team that you can go and see instead. But you're more than welcome to contact me. And I'm on www.claudiakempinskapsychotherapy.co.uk.
And what's your Instagram?
My Instagram is Claudia Kempinska Psychotherapy. Claudia Kempinska Psychotherapy. If you Google it, it will be me. Don't think there's another Claudia Kempinska in the UK, so it's just me. Yeah.
Thanks for watching, guys.